And let's dive on into the top left corner of the map. Our red Protoss player from Storm Gaming is MaxPax's. Opens the day with a win over Gumiho. And with that win, obviously puts himself in a good starting position. This is going to be the first we see of our blue Zerg in the bottom right-hand side, Solar. Let's see how he will do as he faces against one of the two Europeans in this group. Again, this group fully consisting of Kua, MaxPax, Solar, Gumiho, and Lambo. And again, our first 5 matches today will be live, and once we've done those live matches, we have the other matches being played simultaneously, and we'll take the replays from those and cast those. But obviously, we'll be spoiler-free. Nobody knows the results apart from the players, so that's how this system works, just to make it easy for scheduling, easy on the players, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, here we are for a bit of PvZ action. Now, we kind of know how MaxPax likes to play, right? There's not going to be any surprises there, I don't think. He's going to play double Stargate into that Robo Bay, into a third Stargate. This is just his go-to, and it's gotten to the point where he doesn't feel the need to change it up anymore because he just knows he can go straight into this, right? Like, he just has no fear at all. He knows that's how he's going to play. He knows that's what he can do, what he wants to do. And he really does just go for it, and he goes all out with it as well. Just 3D chrono boosting probes instead of warp gate, really fully focused on just getting economy so you can get up to that kind of best possible army as soon as possible. And once he's at that best possible army, then he's typically very happy because he's able to, you know, he just believes, like I say, that's the best possible army. And if you're at your best possible army, surely then you just win the game. I'm really intrigued to see how Solar fights against it. I mean, Solar has been a generally aggressive Zerg player as well. And in a map like Lightshade, I would say more often than not, I'd be expecting Queens and Roaches to be walking on across the map, right? You know, to me, that is just an expectation more than anything else, to see those Queens and those Roaches walking across to the other side. It's a small map. It's a quick walk across. If there is a double Stargate here, which I really do think there will be, that is absolutely what I am expecting to see. So let's find out as we get this going. A couple of Lings going to go nibble on the rocks early. And we do just see that Zergling speed coming up from Solar, so that will be done fairly soon. His first adept is going to go forward, but he does cancel that. I was casting with Lambo the other day, and he actually told me, and basically told me a little bit more about MaxPax's build, how even these little things, like he never lets that first adept go across the map. He never looks for super early game damage. He just wants to put every bit of focus on moving towards the Stargates, the Void Rays, and all of that. So he really doesn't send these adepts across the map all the time. He doesn't look for that damage. He just keeps them at home, make sure he isn't going to die to anything, and then wants to make sure that he's going to be able to, you know, get into that next stage of the game. Two Queens continuing out from Solar, obviously, as he'll want to keep that Queen production up throughout this, as we do have our first Ling going down to a Void Ray. And the Oracle still just continuing out. That'll be finished up fairly soon. And then we will just have a third Nexus starting. Probably time to think about a second Stargate. I mean, again, it's just so scripted, these games of MaxPax lately. And that's why it's actually more interesting to kind of wait to see what the Zerg's going to do about it. Because we kind of more or less know what MaxPax is doing. Unless you haven't watched a MaxPax PvZ in the last 2-3 months. But then you've seen this before. As the +1 air weapon, so he goes into that super quickly as well. Really rushes that out. Wants to make sure you get to +2 early. Because +2 is actually a bit of a game changer. And +2 air weapons can create a lot of timings for you. A lot of the time as well. So a lot to look at there as we'll just be seeing our Lings continuing across to the upper left-hand side. They're gonna, for now, run into a Void Ray. They see the third coming up. They do grab a probe going between bases, which is obviously a nice little pickoff. And Solar gets that Roach drone and the Lair on the way to droning up a little bit further, and we'll see how many drones he wants to end up on. Obviously, there is a stage at which you'd maybe expect there to be a few, you know, to see drones being cut and for more units to be focused on, if he wants to play that more aggressive kind of Roach rush with the Queens. But that's my prediction more so than a guarantee. He could keep droning, and he could end up going in towards just a macro-focus game as well. He's going to get Overlord speed. Is that because he wants to bring queens across the map in dropper lords? That would be my expectation when I see Overlord speed coming up right now. That or, you know, to me, that doesn't really... I mean, maybe just for some new scouting as well, always a possibility too, but... yeah. I feel like a lot of the time, actually, this is just kind of a situation where it's like, well, hey, okay, he's going to go Spire. Okay, so it's not going to be aggressive. He is going to properly put the lair to use, and he's going to use that lair for the Spire tech. So, okay. What does he want to do? Solo's one of these players that used to play at least a lot of the Mutalisks against the Void Rays and so on, and for a long time I was never really convinced, and then I saw Raynor do it, and I was like, oh yeah, that can really work. But even that kind of, you know, even Raynor stopped kind of going for it. It was just one of those things that was cool for a while, then Protoss figured it out, and it just wasn't as good from there. But that's his options, right? You go Mutas, or you just go straight for Corruptors. And yes, Corruptors are not ideal against the Void Rays, but the idea is if you start building the numbers up right now, you can get the Corruptors to a point where they can one-shot. If they can one-shot through the Void Rays, they can actually do okay, dive in, one-shot, get out, dive in, one-shot, get out. And just kind of repeating that process, maybe with some, you know, Hive Tech aid further down the line, such as Vipers. So, yeah, I mean, the options are there. Those are the two possibilities off of our Spire. I mean, I think the Corruptors make a lot more sense nowadays, especially when we see a lot of these double Stargate Void plays going into a third Stargate Fleet Beacon. I mean, to make Mutas right now, you'd be flying into Phoenix and, you know, range Phoenix at that as well, so... well, then again, we're going to make them, so Mutas will start. MaxPax's already starts a Phoenix, so he got a feeling. I'm not sure what he scouted, but that is a fantastic setup because it is absolutely... maybe it's what he doesn't see. Maybe he hasn't seen Roaches or Queens, so he's like, well,